right. More drawing to be done. So, what I want to talk about this time, which I think is going to be maybe a bit more helpful to some of you, is the understanding of the spatial aspects or the three-dimensional aspects of your drawing. Okay, so when you put pencil to paper and you draw, okay, in a sense, you're aware, you're always kind of aware that you are putting lines on paper, right? And of course, your ability to draw anything really comes from your perception of what's around you. You know, if you're drawing a face, a person's body, or whatever you're doing, you know, if you ask a child to draw something, or even an adult for that matter, say someone who has never drawn, what they're probably going to do in most cases is they're going to draw something by putting lines on paper, right? They're going to put lines on paper that represent something, face, body, whatever. Um, you know, if you say, draw somebody running down the street, right? So you might get, you know, a kid, for instance, might draw something where he draws a body, right? And legs, right? Running down the street. Okay. Now, the thing is that as we all know what things are supposed to look like, but the ability to have something in your head or something even that you see for that matter, and then to be able to translate that thing that you have in your head or that you can see onto a flat sheet of paper becomes a problem. You know? We instinctively know something isn't right when we start to make the drawing, especially if we've never drawn before, or if it's something really new, or if it's like a child drawing. We know something isn't right. We know if we look at someone who can draw really well and we see what they can do, we understand that there's a big difference between what the person who can draw well can do and someone who's never drawn before or just starting to draw. A child, on the other hand, you'll notice that when children draw, children don't have this problem because children don't see, um, they don't see what's wrong with the drawing. Their perception and the way they put things down, there's a confidence and there's a, or shall I say, maybe it's not so much a confidence as they're not concerned. They're not making judgments because they haven't learned enough to be able to make judgments. So their ability to create is free flowing, and there's nothing that's interfering with it. When they learn that something isn't right, that's when they start to, you know, get concerned and get worried, or my drawing isn't very good. The minute that they find out that something's not right, then they want to correct it. But as long as they're left alone in the purest state, all children are fine with what they do until they learn that there's a problem. Well, that's good because, you know, I think when you get started, you know, you don't want to be loaded down with a lot of criticism or whatever, you know, let the child naturally develop, and then eventually they will get to a point where they'll need to learn the next thing, and so on and so on. It's just like going to school. You learn your alphabets, you learn math or whatever in this process. Well, art isn't any different. We all have the ability as people to draw. I think everybody has the ability to draw, or maybe to put down lines that represent something that they see or can imagine. the quality of it comes as a result of the process of learning what it takes to take it to that next level so that it's no longer just lines on paper, but now that it becomes something more than that. And so that's what I want to talk about today. How we go from it being just lines on paper to something else. Now, first of all, what you have to recognize immediately about drawing on a two-dimensional surface is, well, the very fact that you are drawing on a two-dimensional flat surface. Piece of paper, your Wacom tablet, scene, whatever, it's a flat surface, right? It's not a three-dimensional surface. When you draw, you're not being given a piece of clay to model something. You know, you're drawing, you're putting lines on a flat surface. So really, in order to create this, the ability of it being dimensional, you really have to create the illusion of it being dimensional. That's what you have to do when you draw. And so when you look, for instance, at a beautiful painting of Michelangelo or Rembrandt or whatever it is you're looking at, and it looks dimensional to you, the reason why that is because the artist understood what they needed to do on that two-dimensional surface to create the illusion of a dimension, of a third dimension. Okay? And so this is one of the reasons why, as artists, you have to learn a lot of things about perspective, about anatomy. When you're drawing human beings, for instance, this is why people go to life drawing classes. They draw from life. This is why you take a sketchbook out and you draw from life. You draw what you see, or you draw still lifes. You set things up and you draw them. Because what are you doing? You're trying to interpret this thing that's dimensional, that is literally dimensional, and onto a two-dimensional surface. Okay. Now, I've been talking a little bit about drawing out of the imagination, but I want to talk about this a little bit because there's a whole bunch of learning surrounding this. But what I'm going to do now is just kind of talk real basics, okay? Now, the first thing that you probably easily able to wrap your head around is shapes. We all understand shapes. And we have some general shapes that we know, all right? Like, for instance, if you were to draw a box and you wanted the box to look dimensional, this is how you would draw the box. Now, even though I haven't done any shading on this box, you can tell already that it looks dimensional, does it not? It does. Now, and why is that? The reason why it looks dimensional, and I'm going to put a shadow here on the ground to make it have even more dimension. It doesn't need the shadow, but I'm putting it here because I want to make a point. You know, the shadow would then give us even more of a sense of it being dimensional. So this is drawn on a flat surface, you see, but it looks dimensional. Why does it look dimensional? It looks dimensional because I'm honoring rules of perspective. I'm honoring rules of light and shade by putting the shadow on the ground. And when you draw some things, you don't always have the luxury of putting a shadow somewhere because, like, for instance, with cartoon characters, say that they don't cast a shadow on the ground, but you still want them to look dimensional. You go back to just the lines that you put on the paper, and how they are arranged is what gives you the illusion of something having a third dimension. Okay. Shading is the easy way, it is a way, or it's one way of creating the effect of something being three-dimensional. Okay. But if we take the shadow out, as I'm going to do here, like I said, you can still tell that this is a three-dimensional shape with just lines. And actually, the strength of being able to do that is far more important than putting a shadow on something. Okay. So you have the box or the square or the cube or whatever you want to call it. Now you also have other shapes. For instance, you have a sphere. Now, a sphere is also, let's see, 1 second, I got the wrong color here, I want black. The sphere is also a shape. But now what do you notice about this shape as opposed to the square? Well, the circle, on a piece of paper, a shape, a circle, or a sphere, as we like to refer to it, doesn't have any, it does not in its own design or outline give us a sense of dimension. It still feels flat on the paper. So what makes the circle become a sphere? What makes the circle become a sphere is when you put something on the surface of the circle. Okay? So if, for instance, you were to draw a line around, and I'll do this with a different color. If you were to draw a line around the sphere like this, now it starts to take on a quality. Now it's like, oh, that line now suddenly defines a side of the sphere. So it's no longer is just a circle now. Now it's a ball shape. Okay. So if you draw lines around the sphere, it starts to take on a dimensional quality. And by putting things on the sphere, objects or images or whatever, you further define the sphere. So for instance, let's say we were to draw an eye on the sphere, like an egg shape for the eye. If we draw that right on the sphere and we draw it the way that it would be on the side of the sphere, just having that eye there defines one side of the sphere. If we draw another eye over here, in order to let the viewer know that the sphere is round, we have to diminish this eye in size. Notice how I'm drawing this eye now. It's a little bit more, it's a little smaller, isn't it? And why is that? Because the eye is going off into the distance. It's being foreshortened, or it's going around the side of the ball shape. And just drawing that is enough to make that ball, that sphere, stop being a line, a circle on a sheet of paper, and it makes it start to look like a shape of a ball. And you're not even relying upon a shadow of any sort. The more things that you draw on the sphere that say either come out from the sphere or go into it, create more of a sense of dimension. All right. So for instance, let's say you were to draw a nose out here. Okay. So you draw a nose out here, but to give it a little bit more of a sense of dimension, we anchor this nose with a muzzle or something that protrudes out from the sphere to hold that nose in place. So now what did we just do? Now we just created a shape, like if you were to take a piece of clay and you were to add the shape to the side of the sphere. Now it has dimension. And even more so, if we want to even do more to illustrate dimension on the sphere, we can cut into it. So let's say we've got the character, it's got a mouth, and so we know the mouth is a hole underneath the nose. Okay, so we draw a mouth, but notice how we're doing this now. The mouth cuts in to the sphere to the point that we can see inside the ball shape. And notice that I'm drawing a bottom lip, which is a piece of something that's coming off of the sphere. And then I'll even go even further and draw a cheek, which connects, because after all, I've got a cheek over here. I'm going to draw a cheek here. I'm going to do a little erasing here so you can see how this works a little better. Cheek there, cheek there. Now what did I just do? I've added shapes onto the sphere. Blow this up a little bit so you can maybe see it better. I've added shapes onto the sphere to give it more depth. You see? So these shapes are visually fooling you into thinking that they're coming out from the ball shape, that they're sort of popping off of the page, as it were. You know, it's an illusion. This is what we do as artists. We create the illusion of depth. And this is why I say this is why it's so important for us to learn anatomy and learn perspective. And these are all things. This is why you go to art school. This is why you learn to do life drawing. You know, this is why you have to do all that stuff. And there's no shortcut around doing those things in order to become a good artist, because all of those things contribute to you being a strong artist. Okay? Because as an artist, you're creating an illusion. You're creating the illusion of depth. You're making the viewer think that they're seeing something in dimension. Because remember, this is still a flat sheet of paper, isn't it? Or flat surface. But you're creating in their minds the illusion. Now, I understand, of course, when you know where to put the lines and how to, that is easier to draw. And I realize that even as I'm demonstrating this, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're just going to 100% get it and be able to literally mimic it. But at least I think what's probably happening in your mind, at least I sincerely hope it is that you're starting to kind of understand what artists do. This is what we do. When you see someone sit down and draw and you go like, wow, look at that drawing and it looks dimensional or whatever, and maybe you kind of wonder how that's happening. This is what's going on. You're looking at somebody who spent hours at in art school, or you're looking at someone who has an understanding of it, okay? Because there are people who are born with a certain skill set where they can do stuff and they're pretty good at it, and it comes to them naturally. But generally speaking, even people who come out with talent and have certain skills still have to learn perspective. They still have to learn anatomy. They still have to go to art school. They still have to do all those things, because you want to get to a place where you understand what it is you're doing so that you can keep doing it accurately. And I've been drawing all my life ever since I was very small. And I went to art school and I did all of the things that I needed to do to become a good artist. And I consider myself to still be a student of art even now. And the more you do anything, the better you're going to get at it. So anyway, I'm just this opening this up for you to see. This is once again one of many different lessons I'll do, but I just wanted you to kind of start to think spatially as to why these things look the way they do. When you look at a cartoon character, say like a Bugs Bunny or a Daffy Duck or a Mickey Mouse or a Donald Duck or a Goofy or whoever it is you're looking at, and you wonder, how did they get that drawing to look that way? This is what you're saying. The artist understands the spatial illusion. We are creating the illusion of dimension because we're working on a flat sheet of paper. We're not, or a flat surface. We're drawing onto that surface so that in order for it to appear to be dimensional, we have to create the illusion of it being dimensional. And that comes from an understanding of what it's going to take spatially to convey that to the viewer. That's what you're doing. All right then. Well, so I'll stop here, and we'll pick up on another lesson. But hopefully, this is helpful to you to get you at least start to thinking in this direction, because it's going to be to your advantage to to get as much out of it as you possibly can. The idea is to you learn, you grow, you develop as an artist. It's a process. It's not something that you get overnight. So don't be discouraged. Drawing from, like I said, I mentioned this before, that there are a lot of things online where it shows you about tracing over photographs and all that. And once again, I'm not shooting that down, but what I am saying is that you're just going to be a lot better of an artist if you're not completely reliant upon photographs and tracing and all that in order to make your art. And yes, sure, you can shoot yourself and shoot your friends on, and draw over that. But I think what it doesn't do is it doesn't give you the confidence as an artist to be able to create something yourself, because you could get to a point where you can sit down and literally create something just completely out of your head. And if you have the knowledge you need to have, if you have the understanding of anatomy, the understanding of spatial relationships and three-dimensional shapes and all that, you start it. And this is what I'm going to be showing you over the days and weeks now from here on out. It just makes you a stronger, more competent artist. You have more confidence that you can create something and that you can create the illusion yourself. And you'll understand why it works. You'll understand how it works and why it works. Once you understand that, then the sky's the limit, really. And then you can do whatever. Like I said, the very best artists out there, pretty much all of them, know what I'm saying. And this is why they go to art school. This is why they learn anatomy and perspective and all those things. And it is something that you just keep learning. But you will get to a point of proficiency where it'll be easier for you and you won't have to work at it so hard. All right. Well, hey, have a beautiful day. What's left of it. If you like this video, drop me a like. I appreciate it. Subscribe to my channel if you like what you're seeing and hearing. Feel free to drop a comment if there's a question you have, and I can answer it. I'll do my best to do so. Have a beautiful day, and remember, Jesus is Lord.